The phone rang at 7:43 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, jolting me awake from the deepest sleep I'd had in weeks. I fumbled for my phone, squinting at the unknown number flashing across the screen. "Hello?" I mumbled, my voice thick with sleep. "Hey, is this Mike?" The voice was unfamiliar, a middle-aged man with a slight accent. "Yeah, who's this?" "This is David. I just bought your Honda Civic from your brother Jake about an hour ago. Real nice car, man. I was calling because he said you might have the spare key." My blood turned to ice water. "What did you just say?" "Your brother Jake? He sold me your car this morning. Said you were moving out of state and needed it gone quick. I got the title and everything." I shot up in bed like I'd been electrocuted. No, there's been a mistake. That's my car. Jake doesn't own any car." The silence on the other end stretched for what felt like forever. Sir, I have the title right here. It's signed over to me. Your brother showed me his ID and everything." My hands were shaking as I threw on clothes and sprinted toward the front door. Please let this be some sick joke. Please let my car be sitting in the driveway where I left it last night. I yanked open the door and stepped onto the porch. The driveway was empty. That space where my silver 2019 Honda Civic should have been, the car I'd worked 3 jobs to afford, the car I'd saved for 2 years to buy, was just nothing. Concrete and oil stains. "Sir, you still there?" David's voice sounded concerned now. "My car," I whispered, staring at the empty space. "He actually sold my car. Look, I don't know what's going on here, but I paid good money for this vehicle. I have a bill of sale and a signed title." I couldn't breathe. The morning air felt thick and suffocating. My own brother, my flesh and blood, had stolen my car while I was sleeping and sold it to a Stradiag. Anger. "Where is he now?" I managed to ask. "Jake? He said he was heading home to pack. Seemed like he was in a real hurry to get the cash." "Cash. Of course it was cash." I hung up the phone and stood there in my pajamas, staring at the empty driveway. Neighbors were starting their morning routines, walking dogs, backing out of driveways, living their normal lives while mine had just imploded. 24 hours ago, I thought I knew my brother. I thought I could trust him. I had no idea how wrong I was about everything. To understand how we got here, you need to know about Jake and me. We're only 2 years apart, but we might as well have been raised in different families. Jake was born with this charm that could melt anyone's heart. Even as kids, he could break something, lie about it, and somehow make our parents feel sorry for him. Me? I was the responsible one, the one who cleaned up his messes, the one who got blamed when his schemes went wrong. Mike should have been watching his brother, Mom would say after Jake got suspended for the 3rd time that year. Mike needs to set a better example, Dad would add, even though I was younger and getting straight A's. By high school, the pattern was set in stone. Jake would screw up. I'd either take the blame or get lectured about not helping him enough. When Jake wrecked Dad's truck at 17, guess who had to give up their part-time job money to help pay for repairs? When Jake got arrested for shoplifting, guess who had to drive across town at 2 a.m. to bail him out? But the car, my car, that was different. That was mine. I worked at McDonald's, Target, and cleaned offices on weekends for 2 solid years. 60-hour weeks during high school while Jake coasted by on charm and empty promises. I ate ramen noodles and wore the same 3 shirts so I could save every penny. The day I bought that Honda Civic was the proudest day of my life. It wasn't fancy, it was used, had 80,000 miles on it, but it was mine. I'd earned every dollar. The salesman shook my hand and said, "Not many kids your age can pay cash for a car like this. Your parents must be proud." If only he knew my parents hadn't contributed a single dollar. Jake was there that day, actually. He rode with me to the dealership and watched me hand over the envelope of cash I'd been saving in my bedroom. He seemed happy for me, even took pictures of me with my new car. "Look at my little brother," he said, grinning, "making the rest of us look bad." I should have seen the envy in his eyes. Should have noticed how he kept asking questions about the title, about insurance, about how much the car was worth. But I was too excited, too proud of finally having something that was just mine. Jake never held a job for more than 6 months. Always had some excuse. The manager was unfair. The hours didn't work with his other opportunities. The work was beneath him. Mom and Dad always supported his decision to quit. "Jake's just finding himself. Mom would say. He's got bigger dreams than working retail. Meanwhile, I was still working those 3 jobs, helping pay rent, and watching Jake coast through life consequence-free. But that morning, staring at my empty driveway, I realized something had fundamentally changed. This wasn't just another mess I could clean up. This wasn't just sibling rivalry or family drama. This was theft, real theft. And I was done being the family doormat. The signs were all there. I just chose to ignore them. 3 months earlier, Jake had shown up at my apartment at midnight, duffel bag in hand, and that familiar puppy dog expression on his face. "I need a place to crash for a few weeks," he'd said, "just until I get back on my feet." I should have said no. She would have remembered the last time I helped him, when he borrowed $200 from my wallet and disappeared for a week. But he looked genuinely desperate, and despite everything, he was still my brother. "What happened this time?" I asked, stepping aside to let him in. "Roommate situation got weird. I'll tell you about it later." He never did tell me about it. That should have been red flag number 1. Red flag number 2 came the next week when I found him going through my mail. He claimed he was just organizing it for me, being helpful, but I caught him specifically looking at my bank statements and car insurance papers. "Just curious what you're paying for coverage," he said with that easy smile. "Mine's way too expensive." Red flag number 3 was when he started asking weird questions about my car. How much was it worth now? Did I ever think about selling it? What would I do if someone offered me more than I paid for it? "Why are you asking?" I said one evening as we watched TV. "No reason. Just wondering if you're happy with it or if you might want something newer." I should have known. God, I should have known. But the biggest red flag was Jake's behavior in those final weeks. He'd disappear for days at a time, coming home smelling like cigarettes and cheap cologne. His phone was constantly buzzing with calls he'd never answer in front of me. He was jumpy, paranoid, always looking over his shoulder. One night I woke up around 3 a.m. and found him in the kitchen, pacing and talking in hushed tones on his phone. "I told you I'd have it by Friday," he was saying. "Just give me a few more days." When he saw me, he quickly hung up. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just work stuff. Go back to bed." Jake hadn't had a job in 4 months. There was no work stuff. The morning he sold my car, I realized I'd been living with a stranger. The brother I thought I knew, the charming screw-up who just needed another chance, didn't exist. In his place was someone desperate enough to forge my signature and steal the one thing I'd worked hardest for in my life. As I stood in that empty driveway, I thought about all the times I'd made excuses for him. All the times I'd told myself he wasn't that bad, he was just going through a rough patch, he'd figure it out eventually. But somewhere along the way, Jake had stopped being my irresponsible brother and had become something else entirely, something dangerous, and I'd been too blind to see it. I found Jake at our parents' house, sitting at the kitchen table like nothing had happened. He was eating cereal and scrolling through his phone, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. "Morning, Mike," he said without looking up. "You're up early." "Where's my car, Jake?" He paused mid-chew, then set down his spoon slowly. "What are you talking about?" "Don't." My voice was shaking. "Don't lie to me. I got a call from David, the guy you sold my car to this morning." Jake's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, confusion, then that practiced innocence he'd perfected over the years. "Mike, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding." "Cut the crap!" I slammed my hand on the table, making the cereal bowl jump. "My car is gone. You sold it. The buyer called me looking for the spare key." For a moment, Jake's mask slipped. I saw something desperate and cornered in his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by his usual charm. Okay, look, I can explain. I didn't sell it, I just borrowed it. I needed to run some errands this morning, and you were sleeping so deeply I didn't want to wake you. David has a title with my forged signature on it. That's impossible. There must be some mistake. I pulled out my phone and called David back, putting it on speaker. "David, this is Mike again. I'm here with Jake now. Can you tell me exactly what happened this morning?" "Sure," David's voice filled the kitchen. "Jake contacted me yesterday about selling a 2019 Honda Civic. We met at a Starbucks around 7 a.m. He had the title, signed it over to me, and I paid him $4,000 cash. Nice guy, seemed like he really needed the money. Jake had gone completely pale. David, can you describe what the signature on the title looks like? I asked. It says Michael Torres in blue ink. Pretty messy handwriting, but it's legible. I stared at Jake. He was trapped and he knew it. Jake, David continued, you still there? I'm having second thoughts about this whole thing. Maybe I should return the car and get my money back. Jake grabbed for my phone. No, the sale is final. Everything's legal. I pulled the phone away. David, I need you to know that I never signed that title. My signature was forged. This is theft. The silence stretched for a long moment. Jesus, David finally said. I'm really sorry, Mike. I had no idea. What do you want me to do? Just don't do anything yet. I need to figure this out. After I hung up, Jake and I sat in that kitchen staring at each other. The cereal was getting soggy in the bowl. $4,000, I said quietly. You sold my car for $4,000. Mike, I can explain. My car is worth at least $8,000. You sold it for half its value. Something clicked in my brain. You were desperate. You needed cash fast. Jake's shoulders sagged. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked defeated. I was going to pay you back, he whispered. With what money, Jake? You don't have a job. You don't have any income. What did you need $4,000 for? He wouldn't look at me. Jake, what did you need the money for? I owe some people, he said finally. What people? Bad people, Mike. Really bad people. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about my car anymore. This was about something much darker, much more dangerous than I'd ever imagined. I called Mom first, thinking she'd be as outraged as I was. Thinking finally, Jake had gone too far and they'd have to see him for who he really was. I was wrong. Mom, Jake sold my car, I said the moment she picked up. He forged my signature and sold it to some stranger for cash. There was a pause. What do you mean, sold your car? I mean, he literally sold it. While I was sleeping. I woke up this morning and it was gone. Well, honey, are you sure there wasn't some kind of misunderstanding? Maybe he was just trying to help. Help with what? Mom, he committed fraud. He forged legal documents. Mike, you know your brother's been going through a tough time. Maybe he panicked. You know how he gets when he's stressed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A tough time? Mom, he stole my car. Don't use that word. Jake wouldn't steal from family. There has to be more to this story. I felt like I was in some alternate reality where theft was okay, as long as Jake was the one doing it. I'm calling the police, I said. The silence that followed was deafening. Michael Torres, you will do no such thing. Her voice had turned ice cold, the tone she reserved for when I'd really disappointed her. You do not call the police on family, ever. Do you understand me? But Mom, no buts. You figure this out between yourselves like adults. Your brother is going through something right now, and the last thing he needs is his own family turning on him. I'm not turning on him. He turned on me. You should have been helping him instead of judging him. You know he looks up to you, Mike. Yo, I know he's always felt like he had to compete with you. There it was. Somehow, some way, this was my fault. I hung up and immediately called Dad, hoping for a different reaction. Dad, I need your help. Jake sold my car without my permission and Mom won't listen to me. Your mother told me what happened, Dad said, his voice tired. Mike, I know you're upset, but calling the police seems extreme. Extreme? Dad, this is grand theft auto. This is fraud. These are felonies. He's your brother. So what? That gives him the right to steal from me? That gives him the right to expect his family to help him when he's in trouble instead of throwing him to the wolves. I was shaking with rage and disbelief. What about my rights, Dad? What about what I worked for? What about the fact that I trusted him, and he betrayed me? You'll get another car, Mike. Jake might not survive what he's mixed up in right now. Then maybe he should face the consequences of his choices for once in his life. That's enough. Dad's voice was final. You do what you think is right, but if you call the police on your brother, Don't expect this family to forgive you anytime soon." He hung up. I sat in my apartment, alone, staring at my phone. My own parents, the people who were supposed to protect me, support me, have my back, had just chosen my thief of a brother over me. They'd made it clear, in their eyes, I was the villain for wanting justice. Jake was the victim who needed protecting. For 23 years, I'd been the good son, the responsible one, the one who never caused problems, never asked for help, never made waves. And when I finally needed them to stand up for me, they'd abandoned me completely. But sitting there in that silence, I realized something liberating. I was done trying to earn their approval. Done trying to be the perfect son while Jake got away with destroying lives. Done being told that family loyalty meant accepting abuse. If they wanted to choose Jake, fine. But I was choosing myself for once. I picked up my phone, took a deep breath, and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? I need to report a theft. My brother sold my car without my permission and forged my signature on the title. Sir, we can transfer you to the non-emergency line for property crimes. Thank you. As I waited for the transfer, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. The police took my report seriously, which was more than I could say for my family. Officer Martinez listened to my story, took notes, and explained what I needed to do to build a solid case. You're going to need evidence, she said. Text messages, phone records, anything that shows intent. Do you have any of that? I thought about it. Actually, yeah, I think I do. Over the next 3 days, I became a detective. I screenshotted every text message Jake had sent me over the past month. I went through my call log and found records of his late-night conversations. I even remembered the security camera on my neighbor's garage that faced my driveway. Mrs. Henderson next door was more than happy to help once I explained what happened. That boy always seemed off to me, she said, pulling up the footage on her phone app. Here, look at this. The timestamp showed 6:47 a.m., almost an hour before David called me. There was Jake, walking out to my car with something in his hand. The video was clear enough to see him unlock the door and drive away. I've got the whole thing, Mrs. Henderson said. Want me to email it to you? But the most damning evidence came from an unexpected source, Jake himself. I found a crumpled receipt in the trash can of my apartment from a FedEx store, dated 2 days before he sold the car. The receipt was for document printing and copying services. When I called the FedEx store and spoke to the manager, he remembered Jake. Yeah, weird situation, the manager said. Guy came in with a car title and asked us to help him practice copying a signature. Said he was helping his brother sell a car but wanted to make sure he signed it right. We don't usually help with that kind of thing, but he seemed harmless. Practice copying my signature. The premeditation was right there in black and white. Then I found Jake's betting app on my laptop. He'd been using my Wi-Fi and hadn't logged out. The transaction history made my stomach drop. $15,000. He'd lost $15,000 gambling in the past 2 months. The debts weren't just to bad people. They were to legitimate gambling sites that had turned his account over to collections. But it got worse. His text messages were full of conversations with loan apps, payday lenders, and people offering short-term solutions at interest rates that would make your head spin. Jake wasn't just a screw-up anymore. He was in deep, dark financial trouble, and selling my car was just the tip of the iceberg. I called Officer Martinez and told her what I'd found. This is good work, she said. Real good work. With this evidence, we can charge him with multiple felonies. Are you sure you want to proceed? I thought about my parents' threats, about how this would tear our family apart, about how Jake would probably end up in jail. Then I thought about David, the innocent buyer who was out $4,000 because of Jake's lies. I thought about the dangerous people Jake owed money to. I thought about what he might steal next, from me, from our parents, from anyone else who trusted him. Yes, I said. I want to proceed. Okay, we'll issue a warrant for his arrest. Given the evidence you've provided, this should be pretty straightforward. As I hung up the phone, I realized something important had shifted inside me. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This wasn't even really about the car. This was about breaking a cycle that had been destroying our family for years. This was about saying that actions have consequences, even when you're charming and even when your parents make excuses for you. This was about finally holding Jake accountable for something. And if that made me the bad guy in my family's eyes, so be it. The arrest happened at Mom and Dad's house on a Thursday morning. I wasn't there, but Jake called me from jail 20 minutes later. "Mike, what the hell did you do?" His voice was different. The charm was gone, replaced by something desperate and angry. "I filed a police report for theft," I said calmly. "Like I told you I would." "They're saying I could get 5 years. 5 years, Mike. Then you shouldn't have stolen my car. It's not that simple and you know it. Those people I owe money to, they're not going to wait 5 years for me to get out of jail." For the first time I heard real fear in his voice. Not the manipulative fake fear he used to get sympathy, but genuine terror. "Then you should have thought of that before you forged my signature." "Please," he whispered. "Please drop the charges. I'll figure out another way to pay them back." "With what money, Jake? You don't have any money. You don't have a job. You don't have anything except a history of stealing from people who trust you." He was quiet for a long moment. "Mom and Dad are never going to forgive you for this. I know. They think you're destroying the family. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just done pretending your actions don't have consequence." He hung up on me. The family meeting happened that night. Mom called and demanded I come over. Her voice was pure ice. "We need to discuss what you've done to your brother." When I arrived, they were all there. Mom, Dad, and my Aunt Carol, who'd driven in from 2 hours away. They were sitting around the kitchen table like it was an intervention. For me. "Sit down, Michael," Mom said. I remained standing. "We've been talking," Dad began, "and we think you need to drop these charges immediately." "No. This isn't a discussion," Mom snapped. "This is your family telling you what's right. Jake made a mistake. Jake committed multiple felonies." "Jake is in trouble," she screamed, standing up. "Real trouble, and instead of helping him, you're making it worse." "How is holding him accountable making it worse?" Aunt Carol leaned forward. "Mike, honey, I know you're hurt, but family sticks together, always. You don't send your own blood to prison. Even when your own blood steals from you?" "It was a car," Dad said dismissively. "You can get another car." "It was my car, that I worked for, that I earned, and he stole it." "He was desperate," Mom said, tears starting. "Those people he owes money to, they're dangerous, Mike. Really dangerous. If he goes to jail, what happens when he gets out and still owes them?" "That's not my problem anymore." The silence that followed was brutal. "If you don't drop these charges," Dad said slowly, "you are no longer welcome in this house." "If you send your brother to prison," Mom added, "you are no longer our son." I looked around the table at these people who'd raised me, who'd supposedly loved me, who were now disowning me for refusing to be victimized. "Okay," I said. They looked surprised, like they'd expected me to cave. "Okay. Okay. If that's how you feel, then I guess I know where I stand." I walked toward the door. "Michael, wait," Aunt Carol called. "Don't be dramatic. Just think about this reasonably." I turned back to face them. "I have thought about it. For 23 years, I've watched Jake hurt people and face no consequences. I've watched you make excuses for him while expecting me to be perfect. I've watched you enable his behavior until it got to the point where he's stealing cars and forging signatures." My voice was steady, calm. "Jake didn't just steal my car. He stole from David, the innocent buyer. He's probably stolen from other people too, and your solution is to let him keep doing it because family sticks together." "That's not what we're saying," Mom started. "That's exactly what you're saying. You're saying that as long as Jake is charming and you love him, he should be able to hurt people without consequences. Well, I'm done being hurt. I'm done watching other people get hurt. The charges stand." I left them sitting at that table and drove home. My phone buzzed with angry texts all night. Threats, guilt trips, Bible verses about forgiveness. I turned off my phone and went to bed. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. Jake's arraignment was set for the following Tuesday. I didn't go. I couldn't handle seeing my parents there supporting him. but Officer Martinez called me afterward with an update. He pled not guilty, she said. But with the evidence you provided, his lawyer's already talking about a plea deal. What kind of plea deal? Probably 6 months in county jail, 3 years probation, and full restitution to you and the car buyer. His gambling debts aren't the court's problem, but the fraud and theft charges are pretty solid. 6 months felt both like too much and not enough. Too much because he was still my brother, and Dion. It beat everything. I didn't want to see him suffer. Not enough because 6 months wouldn't undo 23 years of enabling and manipulation. But it was something. It was consequences. The breakthrough came 2 days later when Detective Williams called me. "Mike, we need to talk. Jake's case has opened up something bigger." "What do you mean?" "When we arrested him, we found a notebook in his car. It's got names, addresses, and amounts of money. Looks like your brother's been running some kind of personal loan scam." My heart sank. What kind of scam? He'd befriend people, usually older folks, single women, people who seemed vulnerable, and ask to borrow money for emergencies, car repairs, medical bills, family crises. He'd promise to pay them back with interest, but then disappear. I thought about all the times Jake had disappeared for days or weeks, all the different phone numbers he'd had, all the stories about roommate situations that got weird. How many people? We've identified at least 12 victims so far. Total amount is somewhere around $30,000. I felt sick. 30,000? Your car wasn't his first theft, Mike. It was just the first time someone with evidence fought back. Over the next week, Jake's victims started coming forward. There was Margaret, a 74-year-old widow who'd given him $3,000 for his mother's cancer treatments. There was David, a different David, who'd lent him money for car repairs that never happened. There was Sarah, a single mom who'd trusted him with her rent money. All of them had fallen for the same charm, the same sob stories, the same promises to pay them back. None of them had ever seen a penny. The most heartbreaking call came from Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman who lived alone. "He seemed like such a nice young man," she told me when I called to apologize on behalf of my family. "He helped me carry groceries to my car and we got to talking. When he told me about his troubles, I just wanted to help." "How much?" I asked, though I didn't really want to know. $5,000. It was most of my savings. I cried after that phone call. Not for Jake, but for Mrs. Chen and all the other people whose trust he'd destroyed. The car situation got resolved faster than I'd expected. David, the buyer, turned out to be incredibly understanding about the whole thing. "Look," he said when I called him, "I feel terrible about this situation. I had no idea the car was stolen. It's not your fault. Jake's very convincing. Here's what I'm thinking. The police say I have to return the car to you, and Jake has to pay me back the $4,000. But what if we worked out a different deal?" "What kind of deal?" "The car's worth about $8,000, right? What if I paid you the difference, $4,000 more, and kept the car legally? That way you get the full value. I get to keep the car I already bought, and Jake owes me $4,000 instead of you." It was perfect. I got my car's full value in cash. David kept the car he'd already fallen in love with, and Jake still had to face the consequences of his actions. 3 weeks later, Jake took the plea deal. 6 months in county jail, 3 years probation, and restitution to all his victims. The total amount he owed was $43,000. He'd be paying it back for the rest of his life. Jake's sentencing hearing was surreal. I sat in the back of the courtroom, watching him in his orange jumpsuit, listening to victim after victim tell their stories. Mrs. Chen was there, using a walker and speaking in a voice so soft, too. The judge had to ask her to repeat herself. "He told me his mother needed surgery," she said. "I believed him because he seemed like such a good boy. He even showed me a picture of a woman he said was his mother in a hospital bed. My mother, Jake's actual mother, was sitting in the front row, crying silently. Margaret, the widow, spoke next. I gave him $3,000 because he said his mother was dying of cancer. He promised to pay me back in 2 weeks. That was 8 months ago." Mom's crying got louder. One by one, 12 victims told their stories. 12 people who'd trusted Jake, who'd opened their hearts and wallets to help someone they thought was in genuine need. When it was over, the judge looked directly at Jake. Mr. Torres, I've seen a lot of cases in my career, but the calculated nature of these crimes is particularly disturbing. You didn't just steal money, you stole trust. You exploited people's kindness and compassion for your own gain. Jake kept his head down. However, I'm told you've expressed genuine remorse and are willing to make full restitution to your victims. Jake's lawyer had advised him to show remorse, to take responsibility, to convince the judge he was sorry. I wondered how much of it was real and how much was just another performance. Therefore, I'm sentencing you to 6 months in county jail, followed by 3 years supervised probation. You will pay full restitution to all victims, and you will attend mandatory counseling for gambling addiction. The judge paused. Mr. Torres, look at me. Jake raised his head. This is your last chance. If you appear before me again on similar charges, you will serve the maximum sentence. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. After the hearing, I found myself face to face with my parents in the courthouse hallway. We hadn't spoken since that night at their kitchen table. Are you happy now? Mom asked, her face streaked with tears. No, I said honestly. I'm not happy, but I'm not sorry either. He's your brother, Michael. Your own blood. And those 12 people he stole from were somebody's mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers too. They're also blood. Human blood. And they mattered. Dad stepped forward. You destroyed this family. No. Jake destroyed this family. I just stopped pretending it wasn't already broken. We stood there in that hallway, 3 people who used to be a family, staring at each other like strangers. When you change your mind, Mom said finally, when you realize what you've done, don't expect us to welcome you back with open arms. I won't, I said. And I meant it. As I walked out of that courthouse, I felt something I'd never experienced before. Freedom. Freedom from the guilt, the responsibility, the constant expectation that I would fix Jake's problems and absorb the consequences of his choices. Jake would serve his time. He would, hopefully, get the help he needed. And I would finally get to live my own life. For the first time in 23 years, that felt like enough. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my new apartment, a place Jake has never been, will never be, writing this story. The car situation is long resolved. I used the money from David to buy a different car, something Jake has never sat in, never touched, never even seen. Jake got out of jail 2 weeks ago. I know because Mrs. Chen called to tell me he'd sent her a check for $500 with a note promising to send more each month, until his debt was paid. Do you think he means it? She asked me. I don't know, I told her honestly. But I hope so. I haven't spoken to my parents since the courthouse. They sent a Christmas card with just their signatures. No note, no invitation to visit, nothing. I sent one back with the same energy. Sometimes I miss them. Sometimes I miss the family I thought we were before I realized what we actually were. But I don't miss the drama. I don't miss being responsible for Jake's choices. I don't miss being the family scapegoat. I've made new friends, real friends who don't ask me to cover for their lies or clean up their messes. I'm dating someone who thinks it's weird that my family doesn't talk to me, but who supports my decision to prioritize my own mental health. I've learned that family is everything and blood is thicker than water are just things people say to guilt you into accepting abuse. Real family, the kind worth having, supports you when you're right, not when you're convenient. The hardest part isn't missing Jake or my parents. The hardest part is wondering if I could have handled things differently, if I should have tried harder to help Jake before it got to this point, if calling the police was really the only option. But then I think about Mrs. Chen's $5,000. I think about Margaret's $3,000. I think about all the people Jake hurt, while my parents made excuses and I enabled him by staying silent. I think about the person I might have become if I'd kept accepting his behavior, if I'd kept prioritizing family loyalty over basic human decency. And I know I made the right choice. Jake needed consequences, not because I wanted revenge, but because consequences are how people learn. They're how society functions. They're how we protect innocent people from those who would exploit them. My parents will probably never forgive me for destroying the family. But I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped participating in the destruction. If you're watching this and you recognize yourself in my story, If you have a Jake in your family, if you're tired of being the responsible one, if you're exhausted from cleaning up someone else's messes, I want you to know something. You are not responsible for other people's choices. You are not required to accept abuse because you share DNA. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for someone is to let them face the consequences of their actions, even if they're family. Especially if they're family. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and doing what's right? How did it turn out for you? I'd love to hear your stories. Thanks for listening to mine.